If you're having a new system back in the days, but also now, finding a different solution for playing your games together with friends is always like a very expensive situation, with Joy-Cons and expensive Pro 2 controllers. However, Hori is here for the rescue with the Hori Pad number 2, or at least it says like Hori Pad. So is this going to be the same exactly thing like the previous one? That is of course something of a debatable situation. However, this is some old school with a cable. Personally, I love it, because when it comes to wireless controllers, these things are always freaking empty with me. So I think this is going to be one of the better solutions for me personally, and maybe also for you. It's compatible with the Switch 1, the OLED, but not the Lite, because the Lite couldn't be docked, because we're going to be using the controller on the docking itself. I'm very curious, is this thing going to be any good? Is it very comfortable? So let's find out today. If you didn't know, Hori is a brand that have released all kinds of different products throughout the years. So first let's get this freaking thing out of the box. So the overall quality of Hori, I'm personally always satisfied with it. They've released like arcade sticks, they've released racing wheels, were debatable of, let's say, the overall gaming experience with some of the products. But with this particular gaming pad, I was not really afraid of it. However, this thing comes with spec'd up with some really cool features. So first of all, I'm getting some Xbox vibes over here with this particular model. But what's going on? So we're having a very long cable, and the cable they're using is a nice quality. I mean, when you're going to be looking at quality cables, there's absolutely a big difference. First of all, if you're going to be looking into, let's say, you have these very strange wired versions with some cloth around it. I must say, braided, I think it's also called. They didn't choose for that. This is just from old school. However, the plastic around the cable, you can see it's very flexible. That's one of the giveaways if you're having like a cheap controller, because these things are like freaking nightmare. And that's not the case over here with the Hori controller. But yeah, the design, getting some Xbox Fire links over here or some vibes. We do have the Switch on and off over here because we can also use it for the PC. So I'm going to be checking out. I think that is one of those cool features that I'm really looking forward to check out. Can we actually use this for the Switch, but also all kinds of PC gaming? So we do have back buttons that we can program fairly easy by the touch of a button. And I think that is one of the extra features. And of course, it also has a turbo function utilized in the inside. So when it comes to the Switch, the trigger buttons, the Pro controller, they are quite nice, but they're not like, say, less of a quality with the Hori pad. And take consideration, like these extra buttons are like fairly easy, like a push and program situation when it comes to the turbo, but also if you want to map the A button for a back button. So the D-pad has a really nice feel to it. I really love it. Like I have this texture, a little bit of a curve to it. And the feedback, it does like a very sturdy feel, but not in a bad way. And the A, B, X, Y is the same story. It does have like a nice feel. And I think the A button, you can see that it's actually going to be shaped to the mold of the controller and makes it even more, let's say, convenient to actually play. So in the end, like the joystick, I don't know what to think about it. There's not like a really texture on it. We have seen it with Xbox 360 controllers, have like a nice feel when it comes to the spring or the resistance of the joystick. But yeah, I must say that this rubber compound, I don't know for sure if it is going to be any good. I don't really like those rubber compound things because they can get sticky. We have seen it even with PlayStation 5 controllers, the first generation, and older controllers. So yeah, that's going to be something we're going to be seeing in the future. However, let's plug it into the Nintendo Switch. So the first thing is that this thing is plug and play. You're going to be hooking it up to your docking and it will automatically be recognized. You don't need to do any configuration, or at least with me. And I can tell you that the overall experience out of the box is absolutely fantastic. And I think that is one of the cool things that you're getting when it comes to these licensed controllers. However, I must say the compatibility of the Switch controllers at the moment is quite good. The sleep mode doesn't really work with most of these controllers. But beside that, I think if you're going to be looking into a second controller, if you want to have like a Mario Kart party and you're getting two of these controllers, you can just actually have like a lot of fun. So when it comes to playability, of course, with every single controller, you're going to be having a slightly different experience. So first of all, if you're going to be having the original Joy-Cons, they have like this very, let's say, I must say this very short travel. That is not the case with the Hori pad. I think the overall travel is absolutely great. The only thing I need to get used to a little bit is the resistance of the joystick, because there we do have like a little bit of difference. But if you're going to be looking into the controller, the quality and overall, I am really satisfied when I'm actually feeling, and when I'm going to be playing, this is a lot of fun. However, let's move into, let's say, some fighting games with the D-pad testing. But let's move on to a fighting game with the brand new Street Fighter 6 on the Switch 2. And when it comes for playing with fighting games, of course the D-pad. I am a D-pad gamer when it comes to fighting games, so this is going to be a very important element of the controller. I already mentioned that I really love what I feel when it comes to the D-pad, but how is it when the input? And of course Hori doesn't really disappoint because I'm getting all of my moves out. Horyukens, Shoryukens, you can all do it, no problem whatsoever. And I can tell you this is going to be absolutely pleasant to play with. Only when it comes to the D-pad, you have so many different versions with micro switches and the resistance, of course the D-pad form factor, you name it. But I must say, if I need to give this a number, I will give this a 7 out of 10. But how about configuring the controller? This thing comes with some really cool features that I personally only seen with those Battletron Action Fake cheap controllers. And I'm very glad that Hori implemented this. So to begin with, if you're going to be pressing that tiny wheel, you can actually configure one of the front buttons, or let's say the shoulder buttons, to the back buttons. Super convenient if you're going to be playing some shooting games. So I think only the Pro Controller of the PlayStation 5 has this. Of course, that is going to be more luxury and more convenient to play because the back buttons are completely different when it comes to, let's say, the quality. They're like having one on each side, but they're bigger. So in that case, it's going to be easier to, let's say, configure. You're just pressing the wheel, you're pressing the front button and the back button. And if you're going to be using the turbo, it's going to be the same situation. Pressing the turbo button at the back, you're going to be giving this thing a turbo function, and that's it. Super easy. You don't need to do a lot of tinkering with it. Of course, you need to get used to it, but beside that, if you're going to be using it with certain games, it can be very convenient. Okay, moving on to some other games. I just wanted to check out this basic racing game of Cruise in, I would say, like the world, USA. No, I completely forgot it. This is like this Cruise and Blast. That's the one. However, let's get into the gaming, and I can tell you that the overall experience of the controller so far, joystick-wise, D-pad-wise, I have nothing to complain here. I've been tinkering with the sleep mode, putting the Switch 2 in sleep mode, trying to activate it, but somehow I couldn't get this to work, so I'm guessing this part doesn't work. You can only do this with the Pro 2. Kinda weird, if you ask me. Yeah, maybe I'm doing something wrong. That's possible, of course. But let's get into some gaming on the retro gaming kiosk with some Windows gaming and with some emulation. So we're using always like the Xbox 360 controller because it's so compatible, you know, RetroArch, you name it, you plug it in, it works most of the time. Even with some separate emulators. So I'm going to be plugging this thing into my hub over here. I'm going to be removing the Xbox controller. So you're going to be setting this to PC, that's it. You don't need to do anything else, and I already noticed with Play Some Blaze Rush, this is absolutely a lot of fun, and out of the box, it works perfectly. It didn't have any issues. However, there's one thing I've noticed. So going to be playing some Sega Dreamcast, I did see that this seems to be working, it's going to be recognized automatically, and I did only had a problem with RetroArch itself. If you're going to be playing some NES, Super NES, Sega Genesis, stuff like that, it didn't recognize the controller, so can we say this is some X input? I don't know. To be honest though, this is not going to be my main controller because I'm going to be having an issue with some of the emulators. So that part, emulation wise, it's not going to be the perfect controller if you ask me, or you need to actually reconfiguring everything, and that is something I personally really hate about these things. So for me, X input with the Xbox 360 controller or maybe a Bido, that's going to be so much more convenient. So the Switch 2 controller, it's cool, absolutely, it works great. I think it's going to be an extra add-on to the collection. So if you want to have a quick controller that doesn't cost a lot of money, I think this can be a very viable option. So for playing PC, this is something I would not really recommend. It does work, or at least the games I've tested, but with emulation, I did notice some problems with RetroArch, and that's kind of weird. So for me, nope, that's not going to be an emulation controller replacing for one of my machines. Thank you all for watching. Consider subscribing, it would be great to see you in the next video.